Hi everyone, welcome to today's video. For today, I wanted to do a really fun birthday card. And I wanted to do something that I haven't done recently, which is watercoloring. Previously, I used to watercolor all the time. It's one of my favorite techniques, and I just got a little away from doing it. So for today, we're gonna be doing this really pretty elegant birthday card. I have to say, this is one of my absolute favorite cards that I've made recently. Maybe it's just because it's something different than like the Christmas and holiday stuff that I've kind of been doing. But I absolutely love this, and it's honestly really easy, and it's really fun because you get to kind of watercolor and paint and just play around. So let's go ahead and jump into what you need to make this card. So we're going to be using, actually we'll start here. We're going to be using the Birthday to You stamp set. This is from our Sale-A-Bration catalog. Here, let me find it. So if you don't know, I did a whole video last, was it last week? Maybe it was the week before. My last video, I guess is what I should say, was a walkthrough of all of the products that I got from our new mini catalog along with Sale-A-Bration, and this is one of the stamp sets that I purchased, or that I got. So this is the Happy Birthday to You. It's a $50 item, so that means that if you spend $50 worth of if you purchase $50 worth of product, you can get this stamp set completely free. So this little catalog shows you all of the free stuff that you can get during Sale-A-Bration. If you need one of these or a mini catalog or a regular catalog, send me an email, drop me a comment down below and let me know, and I'll send one out to you completely free. But this is a very pretty stamp set. I love it. I love this little cake image. It's amazing. So we're going to be using that. For ink today, we're just going to be using our Stays-On ink, and then we're going to be using a bunch of re-inkers. So I like to use re-inkers when I watercolor. I think it's just easier for me to do. You can also take your stamp head and you can give it a little squish, and you'll get some ink on the bottom. Technically it's the bottom of the stamp pad, and you can use that to watercolor as well. You can also, if you have the Stampin' Write markers, you can scribble them on a block and you can use that to watercolor also. So tons of different options on how you can use the products that you have to watercolor. I really like using re-inkers though. That's my favorite way to do it. And if you think about it, I mean, I'll show you when we start to get into this. I only use like 1 or 2 drops at a time to watercolor. Like this entire image that I did with the cake, I probably used, I don't know, maybe we'll say 3 drops of each of these. And they're, I mean, they're decent sized bottles, so you can get so many uses out of 1 bottle of ink. And then also you can re-ink your regular stamp pads. Here you can re-ink them. So that's one of the reasons that I like it, and I think I can control the colors a little bit more, so that's why I really like these. Anyway, that's just me rambling on. Let's talk about the colors. So we are going to be using Smoky Slate, Blushing Bride, Pear Pizzazz, and Pool Party. Those are the 4 colors that we're going to be using today. I also have my little aqua painters here. These are just water brushes. You can use any kind of water brush. You can just use a regular paintbrush and just a cup of water. I really like these because it has the reservoir of water in them already. And so you just kind of squish them, the water goes into the brush, and it's really easy to use. So we'll be using those. And then for paper, we're obviously going to be using some watercolor paper. So this is the watercolor paper that we sell in the catalog. It is this Fluid 100 pound, or this Fluid 100 watercolor paper. Really nice stuff. So this is a piece that is cut at 2 5/8 by 3.5. And then for the rest of the paper that we're going to be using, this is a piece of Highland Heather, and this is cut at 2 7/8 by 3 3/4. I also have a piece of just regular old Whisper White here, and this is cut at 4 inches by 5 1/4. And then I have my card base here, which is 11 inches by 4 1/4. Whoops, and it is scored at 5.5. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to use our Stays-On and our cake stamp, and we're going to stamp it on our watercolor paper. So when I did my first one, when I was playing around with this, I actually used my Stamparatus to do this because I did find that there was I think it was this flower up here didn't stamp perfectly. I do think it's because I had the stamp pretty close to the top of the Stamparatus, and so it doesn't always get the best contact. Because this is such a tiny piece of paper, I decided to go ahead and just stick it on a clear block this time. And if it doesn't stamp perfectly, I think the watercolor and just the stamp, the design of it or the aesthetic of it itself is okay, and it'll be fine if it doesn't stamp perfectly. So let's smush this down. Yeah, I don't like the way that that looks. I think I need to move it over a little bit more. What happened here? I think I need to move it over a little bit more and then a little bit straighter. So the good news is that there's two sides to every piece of paper. So I'm just going to flip it over. I'm actually going to stand up so that I can see a little bit better. Sometimes you have to do that with stamps that you're trying to get like absolutely perfect. You do have to stand up and kind of see what's going on a little bit more. Let's see how this one turns out. Much, 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 much better. So there is our little image. Let me go ahead and put the lid back on that. And now it's really time to start watercoloring. So I'm going to take this, set that off to a side just for a second so I can talk to you guys about how I watercolor with our reinkers. So first and foremost, ooh, there's something on my desk. We're just going to pretend like that's not there. First and foremost, I use a clear block. This is the F block. This is the largest block I believe that we have. And this is what I use when I watercolor. This is about the only thing that I use this block for because it's gigantic and I just find really no other use for it if I'm being 100% honest. So I use this to watercolor. Now, how do I do that? So I take just a regular old paper towel. You can see I have some watercolor already on there. And I take my block and I fold my paper towel in half and I take my block and I put it about halfway on the paper towel. That's mainly just to hold the paper towel down, and I'm actually going to do this because I just know myself. And then what I do is I will take my colors. So again, I'm using 4 different colors here, and I'm just going to take each of these and I'm just going to do a dot of each of them on my block here. And I'm telling you, you literally need hardly any of this color to do this. I'm not doing these in any particular order. I'm just kind of putting them on here. And then what I do is I take my aqua brushes and I have them already filled up with water. I don't keep them filled up a ton. I just have enough water in there to do what I'm doing. If I have to go refill it in the middle, it's not the end of the world. These do come in 2 sizes. So you have one that's a bit larger and one that's a bit smaller. I primarily use the smaller one and I just use the larger one to get water all over the image. That's basically what I do. So that's going to be kind of my first step. I like to just test the moisture level. I was trying to think of another way to say that. Just to see how much water is on the brush. I just put it on my finger, and as long as it's not sopping wet, I'm pretty good. So I just like to go all over the image and just get it a little damp. And this just helps the ink kind of flow a little bit better when you actually start to watercolor in the areas that you want to color in. Sometimes that can be an issue because it starts to bleed. One color will start to bleed into another. So you just have to be really careful about the water content that you're using. That's probably the one main thing that I would say that you have to be aware of, is just how much water is on your brush. Other than that, you can pretty much just have fun with it and go at it. So what I'm going to do, and I'm going to do the exact same thing that I did in my sample here. I'm going to do the little cake plate here in Smoky Slate. I'm going to do the cake itself in Pool Party. The flowers are going to be done in Blushing Bride, and then the leaves are going to be done in Pear Pizzazz. So all I do is I have my colors here on my block. I just pick one. For me, I don't truly care which one goes first. The other thing that I will say is it does help to have a little bit of a scratch piece of watercolor paper, because then you can kind of test the tone or the pigmentation that you have on your brush. So that was just kind of what I did. I kind of like that, but just to kind of show you guys, if I were to squeeze my pen more and just pick up a little bit less ink and more water, I can get a very, ooh, there's a hair in that. I can get a very, very, very light color. And that's why I really like using the re-inkers, because you can do the exact same thing with the Stampin' Write markers, or like I was saying, if you squish your ink pad, you can do the exact same thing. I just find that I have a little bit more control and it's a little bit easier if I use the re-inkers. That's just me. That's just how I like to do it. So you can see I used up all of my ink, so all I have to do is go back and literally put one drop down. And that's going to be too much, I can already tell you, because the gray on this is not very big. So I just test again to see, yep, I like that shade. I will move that out of the way. And then again, I'm using the smoky slate here just for the little cake plate. So it's not much surface area at all that we're using this for. So just this little piece here. And then again, I'm going to get some more ink. I use this paper towel under here to kind of pick up some of the water. Again, your biggest struggle is going to be having too much water on your brush, because that's when things start to bleed. But you have to have enough water so that you can play with the color and get it to move around really nicely. So it's kind of a balance. You just kind of have to play with it and see what works for you and what doesn't work for you. And then I just, again, test the color to make sure it's still the shade that I want. And if it's not the shade that you want, so like as I'm starting to color this now, I'm realizing that it's a little too light for what I'm looking for. That's okay. If it's too light, just continue on. You can always go back and add in a little bit more color. What I would suggest is, if you want to add in some more color, go add it right away. If you just want a ton of color, so if you want it like a lot darker, you can go ahead and do it right away. If you want to add in just like slight darkness or just deepen it a little bit more, I would wait until it gets a little dry, because then the color will sit on top and it won't just kind of blend together. But that worked out really nice for me, so I think I like it and I'm good. I also use this paper towel to wipe off my brush in between colors. It's just easy for me to do that, and it's really nice and handy to have it right here. What you can do if you feel like you're getting too much water, and I know I'm throwing a lot of different tips and techniques at you guys. Honestly, like I was saying, it's just one of those things where you're gonna have to just play with it. Watercolor especially is really fun, because no matter what you do, you kind of get a really nice, pretty look. And you learn from it. You learn every single time you do it. So I would say just try it and keep some of these tips in mind. So if you feel like you're getting too much water, I keep like just a piece of paper towel, and you can always go in and just use the paper towel to pick up some of that water. Also, if you feel like, so let's use this piece here as a test, because I'm done with the gray. You're like, oh my gosh, that's way too much water and it's way too dark. If you do it right away, you can pick up a lot of water, and then in turn you're also going to pick up quite a bit of that pigment. So just something to keep in mind if you feel like you're getting overwhelmed and you can't get your water ratio correctly and it's too much, just keep a piece of paper towel and you can go in and pick it up really quick and easy. So I am going to move on to doing the cake next, and I'm going to do the exact same thing. So I think what I'm going to do is just put some music on, and you guys can kind of watch me paint as I go. If there are any like major tips or tricks that I come across as I'm going, I'll stop and talk to you guys about it. But again, I'm gonna be using the exact same technique. So I'm using my smaller brush, taking a little bit of the ink here, and I like to mix it quite a bit on my block just to really get that water and pigment ratio. And then again, I just test the color on a little scratch piece of paper, see if I like it. Sometimes I like to do it a little bit lighter and see what it looks like, so then I can go back in later and add some shadows and some depth to it. So I think for now I want it to be a little bit lighter, something kind of like that. So I just know I'm going to add some more water and not pick up as much pigment as I start to color this, and that's totally fine. So like I said, I'm just going to go ahead and color. Again, I'm doing the cake in Pool Party, I'm doing the flowers in Blushing Bride, and the leaves in Pear Pizzazz. Other than that, it's really just going to be the same stuff that I've already talked to you guys about, and I will come back when I'm all done. So I do have another little tip or technique for you guys. So if you can see in like the cake here, I didn't do it much in the flowers, but I definitely did it in the cake. You can see that it definitely has some darker spots and some some lighter spots. So the way that I do that is I start by just putting a very flat color down. And I'm gonna let this dry for a minute, but I just wanted to talk to you guys about what I was doing. So I went ahead and put a flat layer down. I'm going to go ahead and work on some of the other elements, and then I'm going to come back. And when I come back, I'm going to go in with a darker shade of my pool party. So I'll just show you guys now so you can kind of see what I mean. But now I can kind of come in and just do very, very light kind of shadowing and giving it some extra depth in a few areas. The stamp itself already has kind of these lines on it. So just as like a beginner's tip, if you shade those lines, that's where you're gonna get that kind of contrast and that depth that you're looking for. Like I said, I find that it works a little bit better if you wait for the first layer to dry a little bit more first, but it's not even bad right now. It still looks pretty nice. And it's just another way to kind of take it to the next level. You don't have to do this. This is an absolutely optional step, but it definitely does kind of bring some more depth and dimension to the piece. So it doesn't just look like a bunch of flat color. It does help make it look a little bit more artistic. But again, totally 110% optional. You don't have to do this part. But I wanted to show you guys, because I am doing it, how I get some of that depth and dimension into my piece. Another tip is, I'm telling you, I'm just rambling tips at you guys in this video. You can take the so normally when I pick up color, I pick it up with my brush like this, right? So I'm picking up a lot of surface area of color. What you can also do, and what I normally do when I'm doing some of this detail work, is I point my brush directly down and I just pick up the tiniest bit of color on the tip of my brush. And then I can go in and put a ton of color right where I want it, so like right on that line, and then I put my brush flat and can kind of blend it out. So those are just some tips and tricks. Again, I am just making this up as I go. This is kind of how I've always done watercoloring with my stamps. There may be better ways to do it. There probably are better ways to do it. So just, again, play around with it. See what works for you, see what doesn't work for you. There is no right or wrong way to go about it. So I'm going to get back to coloring, and I'm going to stop blabbing. And I think I am done. So I did make a little boo-boo here, and I accidentally put my finger in the green and then touched it there. But you know what? I'm just going to leave it. I'm going to accept the imperfection, and I'm going to let it be, because that's just what it's going to be for today. So as you can see, my block has some ink on it. The least amount of ink I used was the green, and it's really easy to clean off. All I do is I take my paper towel and I wipe it to get basically like most of the ink off, and then I'll just take a baby wipe and wipe it down once more to make sure I get everything off, but that's it. So it's a really great way to get another use out of your clear acrylic blocks. And especially if you get like the bundle that has all of the blocks in it. I have always found myself I've always asked myself, what am I going to do with this F block? And here's what I do with it. So I don't use it a ton, but I do use it sometimes for this purpose. So let's go ahead and get this card put together. So I'm going to flip over this piece. Mine is still a little bit wet. You can hit it with your heat tool if you want to. You can just wait for it to completely air dry. I'm not super concerned about it because I'm going to be using tear and tape. Wow. There's football going on downstairs. So, yeah. Anyway, let's go ahead. So, like I said, I'm going to be using tear and tape, so it's not that big of a deal for me, because if the paper warps a little bit, it's going to be stuck down pretty well, so nobody's ever going to know. So, let's go ahead and one more little piece here. And then I'm going to grab my Highland Heather piece and my Take Your Pick tool. And I'm going to take the backings off of all of these. Just like that. And center this guy right on here. Just like so. And like I was kind of saying with watercoloring, if you don't do it perfectly, it doesn't really matter because it just gives it that really nice, pretty, kind of flowy, watercolor-esque look. So it doesn't have to be perfect. And I think that's what I love most about it. So anyway, I am just rambling at this point. So what I am going to do though is I want to go ahead and take my piece of Whisper White and my card base here, and I'm going to go ahead and adhere this down first. And then stamp my happy birthday greeting, and then we'll put the cake on top. I just find that sometimes, because I'm going to use dimensionals for this, so sometimes if you do this and then squish it down, it gets a little deflated, and I just wanted to make sure that that didn't happen for this one. So I'm going to put my piece of Whisper White down on my card base, just like that, and then I'm going to put this guy on. So I just need a couple dimensionals. And there we go. One more, perfect. And then I'm going to center this left to right, but I am going to put it up towards the top of the card because again, I am going to be putting that happy birthday sentiment down here, which I have right here. So I'm going to grab my stays on one more time and ink this bad boy up. I really, really, really like the font of this one. I think it's really, really, really pretty. And then I'm just going to stick it down right here in the middle. Ta-da! Then all we have to do is fold our card just like that. And that is it, you guys. That is how I made this really, really pretty watercolor card. So I really hope you guys enjoy. If you don't do this particular card with this particular stamp set, I do hope that you dabble around a little bit in watercoloring because it's really, really fun and it's really relaxing. It's very, very easy, so don't be intimidated by it. If you have some re-inkers, grab them, have at it, and have fun. So I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. As always, you can purchase any of the products that I was just sharing with you guys 24/7 by going to littlemooncreation.stampinup.net, or you can go to littlemooncreation.com where you can see a ton of fun, amazing things on my website. So I hope you guys are having a fantastic day, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!